Good evening and welcome to the Red Wing League of Women Voters Meet Your 2022 Candidates. My name is Tina Langton and I am a member of the Executive Committee of the Red Wing League of Women Voters. Thank you for coming. We'd like to give a special thanks to the candidates for being here and to our co-sponsors, the Red Wing Area Chamber of Commerce, Pier 55 Red Wing Area Seniors, Citizen Climate Lobby, Resilient Red Wing, American Association of University Women, and the Prairie Island Indian Community for helping us bring you this event. And at this time, I'd like to introduce our moderator for this evening's forum, Lisa Bailey.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you, and welcome everyone. I'd like to just say on behalf of League of Women Voters Red Wing, welcome to the 2022 Meet Your Candidates Forum. Tonight is our third and final forum of this fall's season. Tonight I'd like to especially, however, welcome the candidates who are taking part in one of the most basic things and one of the most basic ways that we can be part of our democracy, throwing your hat in the ring to run for office. I'm going to introduce them by name and ask you to join me in welcoming them with a round of applause after I have finished all of their names. Ron Goggin, Dean Hove, Becky Norton, Jason Snyder, Ted Seifert, Janie Farrar, and Chad Kono. We'll start with our opening statements, and we're going to have Janie, Chad, and Ron.
All right, here we go. Good evening. Thank you to all of you for coming tonight. First of all, thank you to the League and all the volunteers for putting this on with all the forums. I'm Janie Farrar and I'm running to represent you as the City Council at-large candidate. My husband and I chose to move to Red Wing in 2006 from Minneapolis, and we chose this great town with our growing family over staying in the city or the metro area with our growing family. It's a beautiful natural resources, quality of life, businesses like Red Wing Shoe, organizations like the Y, proximity to the airport, and that we knew a small town was a great place to raise children. We have 4 great kids and stay very busy with them and with various community activities. I especially love coaching middle school volleyball right now. I have vast experience in local nonprofits like the YMCA, currently serve on the Goodhue County Park Board, served 8 years on the Red Wing School Board, including 3 years as chair, and I have extensive leadership experience and training, including completing a Humphrey School Policy Fellowship. The 3 issues that are a priority to me and all the people that I hear as I door knock are tax relief, community development, and respectful leadership. I would be a candidate of change, and I'm running to ensure that Red Wing stays that vibrant city that I chose back in 2006. I'm qualified, prepared, and ready to serve you, the citizens of Red Wing. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Chad Kono. I'm running for the at-large position in the City Council. My qualifications for this position are my experiences. 22 years in the Army Reserve, retiring as a lieutenant colonel, the majority of that time teaching military leadership. 10 years in local and regional planning, working with local and state officials, elected and administrators to find efficiencies in delivering government services. 6 years as an elected official, 3 years as a president of a town board. And finally, 32 years in university advancement, 16 of those directing the alumni chapter program for the University of Minnesota Alumni Association, including 1 here in Red Wing. My entire career has been about building strong, effective relationships needed to get things done. Working with the people of different philosophies helped me develop leadership skills that uniquely qualify me to represent the people of Red Wing in today's challenging political environment. I've heard voters say they want local government to live within its means. Doing that will require maximizing city resources through collaborations with state, private, and nonprofit entities. The city will need to be strategic in making investments in public works and services in a way that meets the present needs, but also invests in the opportunities to broaden the city's tax base. Consideration of those investments must be balanced with what the city's taxpayers can afford and with respect for our natural natural and historic setting, and with respect for all of our citizens. Thanks to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum, and thank you to the audience for attendance tonight, and especially your interest in this election. I look forward to your questions.
Well, good evening, everybody. Glad to see so many people here. Thank you to the League and the volunteers for setting this up and giving us the opportunity to let you know where we stand on the issues. So, a little bit about myself. I'm a follower of Jesus, and the Bible is my reference for life. My wife and I have been married for 36 years. My beautiful wife back there. I moved to Red Wing in 1967. Since then, went to school at Red Wing High, graduated from there, went to River Falls, got a degree in business administration, economics, got a robotics and automated systems degree, and did 2 years of engineering coursework. I've worked over 30 years at the nuclear plant, starting out as a laborer, becoming an operator, and finally an IT analyst. I've got 2 grown children, 4 grandboys. And really the reason I'm running is we need public safety. What's happening in the world, when the council made the decision to fire our excellent police chief, we really opened ourselves up to having bad things happen in town here with the riots going on in Minneapolis. And so I want to make sure that never happens again. The next thing is we need to reduce our spending, especially our discretionary spending. And third, we need to listen to residents. When the residents speak, we need to listen. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Dean, Becky, Jason, and Ted.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dean Hove. It's been an honor to serve on the Red Wing City Council. I'm proud to be our longest serving member. Red Wing has a rich history that began in 1857. For the record, I wasn't on the council until a few years later. Red Wing is moving forward. Our economy is strong, and our budget is balanced without raising taxes. Good government is also about protection and freedom. Our strong commitment to public safety has made us all safer. Good public policy reflects our values. I know Red Wing citizens care about each other. I see people here today that helped me work on some of our greatest victories. 2 decades ago, we stood together to protect our riverfront. Today, it's a source of pride that drives our downtown economy. My campaign is focused on the future. Red Wing is getting better because we're willing to work for a bold vision. In a new term, you can count on me for low taxes, wise spending, and strong public safety. And I will keep on listening. I will keep putting my experience to work for our vision of a future that preserves the best of our past, protects our residents, and seeks a better way forward. Thank you.
First of all, thank you everybody for attending tonight and your participation in civic government, local government. And thank you for the League of Women Voters for hosting these opportunities. I'm Becky Norton and I am running for City Council Ward 3. I'm currently serving a 4-year term on the City Council. I'm a single mother with a teenage son. I work at River Bluff Education Center. I'm an 8th through 12th grade science teacher. And about 15 years ago, I had the opportunity to move to Red Wing. And when I considered this a community, I looked around and I thought this looked like a really strong, vibrant, healthy community that would meet the needs of my community and my family. I was excited about the parks, the rich opportunities that Red Wing offered. And that's also what led me to run, to continue the legacy that people before have presented in front of me. As I've been serving on council, I've been elected by my peers to the Port Authority and as City Council President, and I appreciate their support. I'm hoping to run for another 4 years to continue what I've already been able to work on, is building a stronger and healthier community. Making those decisions is really difficult. We are asked to listen to all of our residents. That means the quietest residents and the loudest residents, the majority voices and the minority voices. We also need to listen to the experts and the fresh and creative perspectives. And we need to collaborate and look for partnerships and look for opportunities to continue to grow in a strong way. I ask for you to vote for Becky Norton on November 8th so we can honor our history, serve our present, and look towards the future. Thank you.
My name is Jason Snyder, and I'm running for Ward 3 City Council. I'm not a public speaker, I'm very introverted, so if you guys get nervous, just picture me in my pajamas. That being said, like I said, my name is Jason Snyder. I've been interested in government since at a young age. I'm excited to have an opportunity to serve. Our laws give you, the people, the power to elect those who you think will serve your interests the best. My question is, and this is the question I ask when I'm going out and talking to people, is what are your priorities for me? A lot of people ask, what do I stand for? What are my priorities? The real question is what do you guys think my priorities should be? And I will act on that. At City Council, I think everybody should be represented and should be heard. I've seen that not happen at our City Council, where people weren't allowed to talk. Personally, some of the things I care about are abiding by the law, including points from all people, being fiscally responsible. I've heard that our budget is the budget and there's nothing we can do about it. Well, I tend to think there is something we can do about it. There's got to be some spending that is not necessary. I'm a problem solver by nature. I'm a purposeful listener. And thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for coming. Thanks to the League for presenting this. I'm Ted Seifert. I'm running for council for Ward 4. I've lived in Red Wing for almost 50 years. I grew up in Pepin. I went to River Falls State University, graduated with a degree in history and economics. I spent 4 years on active duty in the Marine Corps, another 13 years on reserve duty in the Marine Corps. I'm running because I want to make sure that we have adequate security here in our neighborhoods and in our communities. I think that we can reduce taxes. You're going to hear from an awful lot of tax reducers. I spent 14 years on the county board, Goodhue County Board, and during that time, I didn't vote to raise your taxes once. It's not that I wouldn't if the money is needed, but there's always plenty of elected people that are willing to vote for higher taxes. So I'm there to watchdog them. There certainly are items in the budget that can be cut, and we should look at that. I have a family here. We have 4 children. My son Michael is still at home with me, and my wife Karen. We look forward to living a great life here in the Red Wing, and so I'm asking you to vote for Ted Seifert for City Council. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Question number 1, and oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. We have the opening statement from Vicki Jo Lambert. That'll be read by Deborah English.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to provide a statement. I apologize for not being present in person, as I am at an unavoidable family obligation this evening. I invite you to take a moment to stop by my table in the back to talk with my supporters after this evening's conversation. My name is Vicki Jo Lambert. I am running for the Ward 4 City Council seat because I believe public service should be about improving people's lives. I believe in the city's mission to create a sustainable, healthy, and equitable community where every person feels at home. I want our youth to have the opportunities they deserve, our families to have the affordability they need, and our seniors to have the retirement they have earned. I will base my decisions on active listening, compassionate leadership, strong partnerships, responsible stewardship, and cooperation. My team and I have spoken with hundreds of neighbors in Ward 4. Residents appreciate the city's attention to beauty, its small-town coziness, and the parks, playgrounds, and trails. Many have expressed an interest in seeing the city grow with more diverse retail options. There is a sincere interest in exploring a community and youth center. Areas for improvement which often come up include street signage and lighting, as well as more housing. While people seem pleased with the services they receive, I want everyone to know that I plan to be your eyes and ears, ensuring that funds are allocated properly. I ask for your vote for Vicki Jo Lambert so we can work together to confront our problems, create solutions, and build a better future for ourselves and our children. Thank you.
Okay, now we'll go to question number 1. And we're going to first have Ron, then Becky, and Chad. Question number 1. What is the most urgent or pressing issue that you would hope to address as a city council member?
As I mentioned, public safety is kind of our bedrock. We need to have a fully staffed police department, a fully trained police department with all the resources they need to support public safety in our town. And beyond the resources, beyond the money, beyond the training, they need to know that the city council has their back in every situation. Thank you.
There are 3 things that I think are really critical at this moment. Ron just mentioned one, which is public safety, which is inclusive of law enforcement and fire department. Both of those departments, it's difficult to hire enough personnel for that. They're not fields that people are getting into at this point. We need to offer them competitive wages and health and wellness to keep a stable department, and that is important to our community. But over-focusing on that makes it seem like we're not a safe community, and we are an extremely safe community, and we have 2 great, healthy, and strong departments. The second thing that I think we need to work on is our economics. We have a lot of opportunities in Red Wing, in manufacturing, in downtown, in local spaces, West End, that we can work on, and we can diversify that economy. And this third thing is our infrastructure. So I think that there are areas where we need to be considering increased storm activity, flooding in some of our downtown areas. We're an old and aging city, and we will always need to maintain that infrastructure and pay close attention to it. And those are, I think, our 3 top priorities at this moment.
Well, I think the major thing is you can put it under a broad term of community development. We need to be competitive with other communities, especially in workforce development. Right now, I'm talking to some of the businesses that we have here in this community. They're not able to work at their full potential because it's hard to find people to work. And we have to understand that we have an asset in this community, and that is the beauty and the historic setting that this community offers. But we need to have workers to sustain those businesses and industries that actually help broaden our tax base, that it's going to allow us to be able to look at the fact that we can maybe address some things that we need to have done in order to support that community development. All the other services like police and fire and all those sort of things are related to community development, because if you don't have them, people aren't going to be attracted to come here. So that is where I would put my emphasis.
Next, we're going to hear from Jason, Ted, Dean, and Janie. And the question again, what is the most urgent or pressing issue that you would hope to address as a city council member?
According to the people that I talk to, my priorities are being a city council member that listens to the constituents. The second priority is lowering our tax levy. Being 120% of some mean that we calculated, it doesn't make me feel better that some other communities 150%. I would like to get that tax levy below that mean. Let's be somewhere in the 90s or 80s, somewhere down there.
Well, we might sound like an echo. Public safety. We need to make sure that we don't have a breakdown in that. We need to make sure that we're fully staffed. And this includes, of course, fire and the emergency rescue as well. You won't find jobs coming to town. You won't find people moving to town if they think it's an unsafe community. So we need to make sure that we have adequate police enforcement, equipment, and leadership. So before we can do anything on those other issues, we need to make sure that that happens. And if we don't, when it breaks down, it'll be a surprise to everybody.
As I said in the beginning, public safety is number one. We've done that. Since I've been on the council, we've added police officers, we've added new equipment, we now have body cameras. The new chief is doing a great job in attracting new officers to come to Red Wing. Right now, I believe we're in the process of hiring 3 new officers. So that's the number one thing. But I also think the other thing is we need to have more housing. We're doing a good job on it right now. By the end of next year, we should have another 250 total over the last 3 years of housing units. We need more. We can't grow unless we have places to put people. They have to have a place to live. And pretty much every business is looking for employees. Well, we have over 40%, probably more than 45% of our employees coming into town from out of town because they can't find a place to live in Red Wing. We need to work on that really strong.
You know, by the time many of us would be on the board, I believe the levy and the budget would already be set. But I'm not also, my number one priority is tax relief. Many of us, when we go around, again, when we talk to people, they talk about taxes being too high in Red Wing. When you go Google and go to the state auditor site, we are number 2 right now from the 2020 tax levy. We are ranked number 2 in Minnesota for cities with a population over, let me make sure I get this right, 2,500 people. Number 2. Wayzata is even after us. They're number 7. So I bring that up because it affects everything. It affects people moving to Red Wing to have jobs, so our businesses are thriving. It affects affordable housing because affordable housing does include taxes. So if I was to get on the council, I would number 1 say, how in our next budget are we going to address what this current levy is and make sure our citizens can live here in an affordable way and this town thrives. Thank you.
Question number 2. Better mark this down so I remember which one it is. And this is, we're going to have Dean, then Ron, and then Becky. If the city council were to lower taxes, which services would you choose to reduce or eliminate in the budget?
Well, we just did that. We lowered payroll, and that's usually what every business goes to first, is you lower the payroll, then you start looking at other things. But if I guess I disagree with some of the people up here that are saying that we're the highest tax. We haven't raised the levy in 6 years. It'll be 6 years this year. For the last 5 years, it's essentially been flat. It might have gone up a little bit, a quarter here, and then down a little bit, and then up a little bit, but essentially it's been flat for 5 years. We are proposing, actually I proposed it at the budget workshop, that we do a 0 levy this year. So that we've actually already done it. And over my 20 years, we've cut a lot out of the budget. You don't see a lot of things that, but you gotta be careful when you start cutting the way some people are talking up here. You better get citizen input, because that's gonna take when you gotta start cutting services in. You want the pool gone, you want the golf course gone, you gotta start not mowing the parks. I mean, these are serious things. We've got it pretty tight right now. That's where we're at. So, but when we're able to do it.
Next we'll have Ron and then Becky.
So we keep hearing about the levy. There's really 2 components to our taxes. We have the levy and we have our property values. So I was just looking at my taxes here the other night in preparation for this. Since 2019, my taxes have gone up 28.5%. And now I've done a lot of improvements to my house, but those were all done prior to 2019.
I'm sorry, Mr. Goggin, could you just wait for a moment? I believe there's a problem with the sound, and we're just going to double check that. I apologize. Okay, go ahead.
Can you hear me now? Okay, I'm not sure how much you didn't hear before, but do I get to start over? Okay. So we hear a lot of talk about the levy and how we've kept the levy flat. As I said before, maybe heard, I checked my taxes, they've gone up 28.5% since 2019. And if that's with a flat levy, you know, it's still taxes, it's still money out of my pocket. So what we need to do to reduce taxes, what we need to work on is we have 39 parks in the city right now, and we're proposing to add more and more bike trail at a very high cost between the levee and Cobble Park. So if we need to choose between garbage service, roads, police, fire, everything else that's like an essential service, and that, I would cut that. And so now we just had an increase in our sewer and water availability. And some people really took a hit, businesses took a hit. You know, we need to move some of the capital money from bikes and trails and parks and get that into our infrastructure services.
The question is, what would you cut if you had to lower the taxes? And this is exactly what I meant in my opening statement, is that every decision that we make affects a lot of other decisions. When you cut something, a service that is provided to the community, you have to think about how it impacts everybody. So the cuts that we'll be making perhaps are eliminating boulevard tree replacements. Some of us won't have a problem replacing those trees and removing those trees. Other members of the community will have a problem paying for that expense and paying for a new tree. One of the things that we have to look at is some people have beautiful yards and lots of play equipment for their children to play in, and some people use the park spaces. Cutting parks and cutting boulevards, cutting snow plowing, the services that you all feel will impact other people differently. And I think that's one of the things that we have to approach when we look at those budget cuts, is who will be impacted and how will they be impacted. So I think that there are a lot of smart ways that we can look. Mostly, I think it's wise for us to look at opportunities that help us to pay for things that keep us a strong and thriving community.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Chad, Janie, Ted, and Jason. And I'll read the question again. If the city council were to lower taxes, which services would you choose to reduce or eliminate in the budget?
Well, I think it's dangerous for those of us that especially haven't been part of the budgeting process. I've attended some of the meetings, but not all. But I think it's dangerous for those that sit on the outside and say, okay, here's where we cut, have not had that conversations with our community partners and that sort of thing. I think we got to be very, very careful about how we approach cutting things. As I said earlier, we want to make sure that we're making investments that help us expand our tax base. And I have to disagree with Ron. I don't think cutting the Parks Department is going to help us do that, because I think that happens to be an attraction. It's not only a service that the community uses, the members of the current community, but it's also attraction, especially the bike trails. For some reason or other, that seems to be a favorite target, but that happens to be an attraction to this community and needs to be invested in so that we have more people come and spend their dollars here.
As several of us have talked about, cutting is extremely hard. I've done it before. I've had the experience. I've cut $2 to $3 million. We've had to on the school board. I've had to make those hard decisions where you have a neighbor and you have to say, gosh, unfortunately, we've had to cut your position. So I actually thought about kind of the easy one that came off of the budget talks. And as I listened and watch the meetings. Actually, the government admin services was something that seemed to be very easy, if we can say, to make some reductions in. And I believe some of the comments were on the meeting minutes and reducing committees in this city, and possibly, maybe overtime for our staff having to attend quite a few meetings. So that's where I would start. You start easy, and then, we can go down the line. But there are ways to cut, and we have to do it.
All I can do is say I agree to much of that. Why would we want to cut taxes? Many of you love what we have here in Red Wing and want more of it, but there are others among you who are struggling, especially today with high inflation, high gas prices. They can't quite put gas fill up a whole tank of gas. They can't quite put food on the table. We need to cut taxes so that their rents and their taxes go down. And the way we do it, of course, payroll is one of the largest amounts that any organization puts out. We can start doing less with fewer. We can also stretch out what's going on. We have a 20-year plan. Instead of spending that money all boom, boom, boom right when it comes, we're going to make it a 25-year plan and stretch it out so that we can reduce our spending, reduce our levy, and leave some money on the kitchen table.
So I'm going to echo what Ted said. He kind of stole my line. Anyway, you do have to be careful when you're cutting taxes, but you have to consider why you need to cut taxes. I mean, high inflation these days. People are hurting, and we need to start. It's easy to beautify your city with open purse strings. You have to start tightening the purse strings because people are hurting. And if it involves not putting in a bike path, or maybe there's, according to my neighbor, there's some properties that the city owns that we maintain that maybe we should think about selling and getting a business in here. But anyway, you have to do smart cutting, and it's what the citizens want that is most important.
Question number 3. We'll start with Becky, then Ted, and Jason. How would you describe the current relations with Prairie Island Indian community? What actions do you think could be taken to improve them?
Our Prairie Island Indian community are our neighbors. A lot of the members, or several of the members, live within the city limits, and some of them live adjacent to it. And a lot of members live right here in town. The Prairie Island Indian community and our relationship with the city is always going to be a work that we're going to need to focus on. I've been a tribal committee member on the council, and reaching out to them and working on projects that are important to them is also important to me. Recently, we did a cleanup day on the Mississippi River. The trash along the Mississippi River near Sturgeon Lake Road was important. It's important to get in there and clean it up and to add signage to it and to address that issue. Another issue that's come up is representation of Chief Red Wing here in town. So I've been working with some outside the community members and some members within the community and a committee to make that happen, to make a monument or a sculpture, to see what the Prairie Island Indian community would like to see for representation here, and make sure that their community is part of this. It's integral within Red Wing. It always has been, and it's necessary for us to make sure that everybody sees it and knows it wherever they go throughout our town.
I've known many of the tribal members and the leadership for many, many years. We met with them regularly when I was on the county board. I'm not sure that happens quite so frequently with the city council. I know that we need to recognize that they were here first. They have areas that they consider sacred, and that we should at least acknowledge that. Also have history and leaders from history that they would also like to acknowledge, and we should do that. I'm certainly happy to support the Indian community in their endeavors and their franchise of the gambling that has lifted many of them out of poverty. And so I think that we can continue to work very well with our Indian neighbors.
The best way to go about trying to make sure that our relations are good with the Indian community is to go ask them. That's it.
Next, we'll have Ron, Dean, Janie, and then Chad. And I'll read it again. How would you describe the current relations with Prairie Island Indian community, and what actions do you think could be taken to improve them?
I think everything that I've seen, our relationship with the Indian community is getting better and better every day. My kids grew up with other kids from the community there. They played sports together. We got to know the parents. Wonderful people. I kind of hate to answer, how does the city of Red Wing and how does the Indian community interact or whatever. It should be, how can we all interact? Let's not put each other in a box or a silo and say, we're gonna do everything as a group. This group, we're gonna interact with you as a group. Let's get out and each one of us interact with somebody from that community and really within our own community here. So I would say that we need to continue what we're doing. I'm not so sure that we need to continue to put up signs and everything else. If the Indian community wants to, fund some of that stuff, I think that's good. I think we need to remember our heritage, and it's a great heritage, and we got to make sure that anything we do, does not denigrate their community.
Well, I'm here to tell you it is a whole lot better than it was 20 years ago. I think we get along really, really good with and I tend to agree with Ron. There are citizens, they live in Red Wing, and we work really close with them. We have quarterly meetings. Every once in a while that gets missed, but we have a much better relationship with Prairie Island now than we did even when I first got on. We recognize that they were here first. We worked together on a lot of different, especially the old. I'm going to butcher this name, but Inchimen, which is the old Barn Bluff. That's what we're calling it. And it is, we're just doing the right things now that I'm not so sure that we did in the past. I've always supported them. I think that it's going to be even better going into the future.
Well, not having been a long-term member of this community like others up here that have been, it's heartening to hear that the relationship is what it is. I come from an area where that wasn't the case at one time, but I think from what I've seen in the time that I've been here, they're a valuable partner in this community. They're a valuable resource for this community, and it's something that we ought to embrace. And the fact that if there's some interest in paying honor to Chief Red Wing, I think that's in our best interest also. So I would definitely support enhancing even our relationship with the Indian tribe.
It's real that the order gets a little confusing, so I'm glad everybody's being patient. But I would kind of echo what everybody is saying. Relationships are so important. So I know when we worked on the school board, the more we can be with the tribal council and the leaders in this city and build trust. Treasure Island and Prairie Island, they support huge employers in this county and in this area. So we definitely have to know just how important they are here. And I would agree that things have gotten better, but we can always do better. So continue to build relationships. I would love to ask them, the Prairie Island Tribal and the whole community of what we can continue to do. I know I've had some citizens and I think it's a great idea. Let's talk about our history in Red Wing. Maybe a museum could possibly be sponsored by Prairie Island. I think that'd be a great addition to understand the historical nature of this area. So thank you.
Okay, question number 4. We're going to start with Jason, Janie, and Chad. In your decision-making as a council member, what can you do to address and decrease divisiveness within the council?
That's pretty easy. Just listen to what each other's saying.
I'm going to go back to, again, relationships. We need to realize that everybody's viewpoint matters. Every person, regardless of their story, matters. And I've worked with a lot of people that think differently and live differently than me, whether on the school board or in my different leadership training. And you just have to respect people, and your actions have to match your words. So again, I love working with people that are different than me. I know how to do it. I've done it successfully, but it does take a lot of work. So you have to be vulnerable. You have to work at it. You have to do things that build teamwork and build consensus, and you have to be willing to work together.
On this one, I guess I agree with Janie and Jason. I think it all is a matter of respect and honor. When you're working with a lot of different views, which I've done in the past, you hear a lot of different opinions, and you have to work within that parameter and make the best decisions you can for the community. And I think even if you don't necessarily agree with those views, I think you know, especially if you hear it from your citizens, you still have to represent that view in the decision-making process. So I think it's all a matter of respectful, as I said, process, because that basically is the foundation of our democracy, is differing views and being able to express those views in a climate which is conducive to coming to a common sense and a common decision.
Next, we'll hear from Ted, Ron, Dean, and Becky. And the question again, in your decision-making as a council member, what can you do to address and decrease divisiveness within the council?
Yes, you always have to respect that somebody else has a different opinion from you, and whether you agree with it or not, you have to respect that they hold that opinion and not be antagonistic about it. To talk about issues and work out why they may hold that position would be important. When I was on the county board, we respected each other to the point that we didn't even really vote for who was going to be chair next. We just had an automatic system, and when it was your turn, you were chair, and after you were vice chair, you were chair. So respect for other people's opinions, ask them, talk about why and what the results of that opinion might be.
Those are all good comments. We all have to work with each other. I mean, we have to work with family members even. And we're always going to have a difference of opinion on just about any subject. But when we have those differences of opinion, we need to learn from other people when we hear their opinions, right? We're always going to go in and we always kind of think that we want to have our way. But we always have to remember that each other person in a work setting, in a city council setting, they're going to have their own opinion, they're going to have their own constituents' opinions to represent. So I think we need to use it as a learning opportunity, and I think we need to make sure that we don't use commission memberships and things like that as tools and wedges to break each other apart. So I think we really need to just remember we each have our own opinion, and it's our job to convince the other people that our opinion is better. Thanks.
Well, actually, I find it pretty easy. I pretty much get along with everybody. I want to hear what they got to say because I learn from everybody. Every time I talk to a different councilor, I've been on 10 councils now. Everybody's different. You listen to what they have to say. You make a decision. The biggest thing is respect that decision. Once the council makes the decision, then the whole council should get behind it. It works much better that way. And I've been quite a few times where I didn't get the vote that I wanted to get, but I supported the majority. And it made a big difference. We were able to move forward, and life was actually pretty good.
I actually don't find that the council to be very divisive. I find that, there are moments when our conversations get really intense. We're all passionate about what we do, passionate about the way that we represent you. All of you will disagree about a different thing. You might agree about investing in one thing, and half of you would disagree about investing in that same thing. And we're going to have to vote yes or no, and half of the constituents will get what they want and half won't. But up there at the table in the dais, we have conversations, and I'm really excited that when I do my research and I come to a council meeting, I don't always know which way I'll vote. I kind of know which way I'm leaning. I've gotten a lot of information, I've listened to constituents, and then we have a really great conversation. Everybody starts talking and sharing things, and you can see in real time how things will move and how compromises are made. And that's the really exciting part about city government, is that you get these elected leaders to talk about different things, and together we create a policy that represents all of us. No one of us is as smart as all of us. And that's the really exciting thing about being a council member up there.
Question number 5. We'll start with Chad, then Jason, and then Ted. What can the council do to address the reduction in the Xcel Energy personal property tax?
Well, as I said earlier, Red Wing has the advantage of being a attraction. We got a lot of people that want to come here, want to visit here, and we need to take advantage of that in terms of broadening our tax base. And that's, to me, the best way we can blunt any future reductions in that tax base. That means being wise about investments that we make. As I mentioned earlier, one of the possibilities of that is being the bike trail system. We have to realize that we're in competition with other communities like Lanesboro that has a bigger bike trail system, has more advantages than what we have. But if we invest wisely in things like that, that'll bring people in. Not only in that area, but in other areas also. So that's why we need to be cognizant and be wise about making public works investments.
You can reduce the Xcel Energy tax base, is that the question?
What can the council do to address the reduction in the Xcel Energy personal property tax?
I just talked to a representative of Xcel Energy, and the first thing we can do is start by having some sort of formula for their tax base. Apparently Minnesota is a standalone in that area. That being said, what we can do is talk to the community and see what we don't need and see what we can cut. Yeah, that's it.
The Xcel tax base is more than 50% of the taxes that are collected here in Red Wing. So if that were to go away by a big portion, they will probably always have a facility paying some tax. But if they stop generating, the value of that tax is going to go way down. And so you look at the big gorilla in the room, the specter of all of a sudden the city is going to have to start, the citizens are going to have to start paying almost a 50% increase in the tax, actually a 100% increase in the tax. What do we do about it? We need to start now to make sure that we mitigate if that ever happens. And reducing taxes and reducing our expenses is a good thing, even if the power plant remains here and remains generating. We need to not use quite so much equipment. The city has an awful lot of equipment, rolling stock and so on. We need to sell that, not replace it, and contract for the work that needs to be done in those areas.
Next, we'll hear from Janie, then Dean, Becky, and Ron. And again, what can the council do to address the reduction in the Xcel Energy personal property tax?
You know, the first thing I'd say about what the council could do is we could be a friend to Xcel and make sure our relationship is strong, that we have good communication. Energy is an important, complicated subject, and I know that it's going to be changing in the years to come. And I know for certain that many of us would feel if Excel did not renew, like again, what that tax impact could do when they're 51% of our tax base. So we have to be pre-planning for that if it did happen, if it was not renewed. So we need to start talking about that. And I would agree that that begins with what are we going to cut right now. But I'd say first is let's start being a friend to Excel and making sure that we are a supporter of nuclear energy at this point.
Well, I guess I'd say we're pretty good, on pretty good terms with Excel. We meet with them quarterly, sometimes even more frequently than that. But the answer to the question is that's exactly what we've been doing. When I first got on the council, it was like it was like 40% of our tax base. It's now 51. It was 53. It dropped 2%. But the big thing is that industry has grown. When their industry and combined with Excel is paying 68% of our taxes. The homeowner is paying like 26%. So it's a major difference. We need to grow the industry to help make up for when Excel leaves. I gotta totally believe them that I don't think they're gonna leave for a long time. And if they do shut down, it's gonna be some other kind of form of generating because there's just too much infrastructure out there for them to just up and go away. So they're still gonna generate tax base for us.
I've been lucky enough to be on the Prairie Island Nuclear Generating Plant Committee since I started on council. And we meet quarterly, and as Dean said, even more frequently as needed. During COVID, we met regularly and stayed in communication with them quite regularly because they were going through an outage at the same time. Our relationship is excellent with Excel. We know that they're partners, we know that they're really important, we know that they contribute somewhere between that 50 to 57% of our tax base. We really pressed hard on being included in the latest IRP, which is their future planning, so that we knew is that end of license in 2033 and 34 going to end, or are they going to renew it? We need to know that because, as you said, we need to plan for that. They have indicated that they will ask for renewal of that licensure. So that means that we don't want to gut the city right now. We want to strip everything right now. We want to start using that information to plan. And we want to be steady and stable. Nobody wants giant spikes and dips. We don't want an infrastructure system or an infrastructure failure and to have to pay that all in 1 year and have a huge spike. So working with them and also with them to level out with the Department of Revenue their prediction of their taxes is a good partnership with them as well.
So my first reaction is well, at least I would reduce the upward pressure on our electric rates. But beyond that, Excel is a very important part of our community, not just the taxes they pay at the plant, but also the employees that live here. I mean, I've worked at the plant there for many years, and I can tell you, you know, the people that work at that plant also contribute to this community. You know, they pay property taxes and whatever. So what do we need to do to blunt that impact if it were to happen? Well, we need to make sure that we right-size our city services, right-size, you know, how much infrastructure we have, so that when we get to the future, that if we don't bring in enough other business to counteract that loss, that it would be falling on the existing businesses and the rest of the community. So I think we really need to be looking closely at economic sustainability and our trajectory with our taxes and where we're going with that to make sure that we don't cause a major disruption if they close.
Okay, question number 6. We'll start with Becky, then Ted, and Janie. How would you address systemic racism in Red Wing? This one has 90 seconds to respond.
That's a great question, and it's something that certainly has come up a lot in the last few years. We need to do this on an everyday basis. Every decision, practice, and policy that the city makes, we need to look at with an equitable eye and a sustainable eye. We have the city uses a HEAP sheet. It's the health and equity sheet. It's a sheet that sort of walks you through how do your practices and policies address equity in our community, including racism. Systemic racism is systems that are built in that we don't even feel sometimes are inequitable. So we need to, as I said earlier about what we cut, we need to look at if we cut a service, how will that affect every resident in town? If we change a policy or change a practice, we need to review them on a constant, regular basis. We need to look at our recruiting practices. How do we recruit equitably? So, snow plowing, we might look at which order do we plow streets? Is it where people are walking or driving, or where there are routes to schools, or where there are children walking to schools? Every single decision we make, we need to be looking at with that equitable eye. One of the things that I've been working on council is a BIPOC or veterans or women-owned business scholarship or grants or loans program that will increase some of the businesses in our community that are needed in our community so that members of color of our community feel more welcome. They can't get all of their products and all of their services here, and I'm excited to be able to work on some of those opportunities so that we can have a really well-rounded and strong community that serves everybody in town.
Systemic racism. I think that's a construct among a small number of people. This is one of the greatest countries in the world. You can come here and regardless of your background, your color, or anything else, you have the great opportunity to succeed. And how would I deal with racism? Education is one of the major things that we need. A person who has an education has a bright, bright future to them. So we're going to look to our schools and our educational systems to make sure that they don't let people of any group, whether it's color or whether it's their gender or whatever it is, we don't let them fall behind. We want to make sure that everybody has that opportunity, and that erases and does away with systemic racism. Thank you.
Definitely a difficult subject that we all know. So obviously we know that there's policies and laws in the past, whether it be in Minneapolis or here or in other places around the country, that have adversely affected people of color and different genders or whatever it is. But I want to make sure, when I think of racism in general, we have to be a community that is always talking about belonging and acceptance and respect and making sure we have opportunities to build relationships between us. Because that's where trust happens. That's where we can have conversations about our policies and laws and how they affect people. So again, I would be focused on making sure we can build relationships with every person that walks into this city and decides to live here or to visit here. We need to be welcoming to every person that's here.
Next, we're going to hear from Jason, then Chad, Ron, and Dean. And again, the question, how would you address systemic racism in Red Wing?
Over the last 7 years, I go on an annual bike ride all over the United States. Over the last 7 years, I've been to all 50 states, and I've talked to thousands of people, literally thousands of people. We are not a divided nation. But how would I deal with systemic racism? First thing you have to do is get social activism out of your government. If your government's socially active, that means you're giving voice to one and stealing it from another. If you need a group to get your voice heard, you put that group together and you come and you talk to the city council about various things. You don't have your city council being socially active. I do not feel that we are systemically racist. I think we all get along. I think we are all united. And I think that's a term that we use to divide us.
Well, it's heartening to hear some of the comments about what we can do to address the subject. I think For the most part, it all is a matter of respect and being viewed as an open community. I think we need to examine policies. We need to examine services. We need to look at anything that can be viewed as a possible barrier to people feeling welcome in this community and being able to succeed in this community. I think I would like to hear a lot from the Human Rights Commission about what they see as needs that need to be addressed and barriers that might exist. I think one of the things that we need to talk about, and I mentioned in the area of community development, is affordable housing needs to be talked about in terms of what that is available to people that want to move to this community, and those that are in the community that need to have that type of housing. So I would say there was where I'd start, and that's what I would focus on.
So I agree with others that systemic racism is something that's been purported in order to pit one group against another. Once again, it's putting people in groups and pitting those groups against each other. Systemic racism can only happen if you have a large group of racist people. So I'm going to say, if you're racist, knock it off. We all came from Adam and Eve. We're all the same blood. We can each share blood. We get in a car accident, we can get a transfusion. The racism has to stop, and anything related to using racism as a lever to push one social agenda over another, or to push one group over another, put one group above another, one group below another, to me is just wrong. So I think we need to make sure that our city policies are cleansed of anything that would, say somehow that somebody that's a person of color or even a white person can't get that job. But other than that, I just don't think that systemic racism is one of our big problems in this town.
Well, we started this a few years ago, but we now have a racial equity plan. We've also started a citizen-led committee to go through each department's policies, so that we'll eventually get through the whole city to address systemic racism. It was and I agree with what Becky had said earlier. She does explain it a whole lot better than I do, but we just need to eliminate that from the city. We need to go through every single policy that we have, and so we can guarantee that everybody is getting the same rights and the same freedoms as everyone else.
Thank you. Okay, we're moving to page 2. Question 7. We'll hear from Janie, then Chad, and then Ron. Are there circumstances in which you would support eliminating our professional fire department and replacing it with volunteers, or conversely, replacing our hybrid system with a purely professional fire department?
Hold on, everybody. I would say that every option has to be on the table, because a council is meant to be leaders and they're meant to look at different choices and make the best decision in the end. We would all have to know a lot of information on that, but I believe every option has to be on the table. And I do know through some of the budget talks how much our ambulance services and different things have been so much high above even other cities that are our same population and same budget. So I just, again, think that we have to be talking about anything on the table and every option.
Well, it may be on the table, but I wouldn't put it on the table very long, because I'll tell you what, I can't imagine having a city this size protected by a volunteer fire department. It's just not possible. I mean, we're having problems enough trying to recruit volunteers in many of our organizations and that sort of thing, let alone try to recruit them to be firemen and ambulance drivers or ambulance attendants. It's just not feasible, in my opinion, in this type of city. Furthermore, when that happens, all of you are going to pay, because you're going to pay through higher homeowners insurance, because a lot of your insurance is based on what the quality is of your fire department and how far away you are from it. So it's not as easy as saying that we can cut that particular area. So I wouldn't support that in any way. I think that'd be a very low priority in terms of trying to cut the budget.
I agree with Janie that all options have to be on the table, but right now I think our fire department and ambulance are serving us well. I'm not so sure we should have built the second fire station. We did end up having to have more equipment and more people than originally planned. But all options do have to be on the table. We don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. And there's other communities that do have all volunteer fire departments. I don't know that I would ever be for a totally volunteer department. I think you need that core base of professionals to really anchor the department. Now, I would look at some of the other agreements we have with other communities. It seems like when we see an emergency somewhere, a fire somewhere, we have a lot of communities respond to that place. You know, so if there's a fire in Red Wing, we get Ellsworth and Cannon Falls and whoever come here. We have a lot of expense that we could look at. Do we really need to respond to every one of those emergencies with all of our departments?
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Dean, then Becky, Jason, and Ted. And again, the question, are there circumstances in which you would support eliminating our professional fire department and replacing it with volunteers, or conversely, having an entirely professional fire department?
No. What most people don't realize is that we have a full-time fire department, and we're only paying half the cost for it. How many of that, anybody know that? Well, half of our department is paid for by our ambulance fund. So we're getting a full-time fire department for half the cost. Ambulance fund, and we did need the, in my opinion, and the study that we did need the fire department out in Burnside. We used to have a fire department out in Burnside back in, I think it was in 73 or 74. The city council voted to take it away. That's the whole end of town that's really growing, and it's we have the land to grow even farther out there. We need that service. Most of our fire department services is done, 90% of it is because of ambulance service. When people are having a heart attack, we need to get them there. We need to make sure our citizens are safe. I'm not going to cut either the fire or the ambulance service.
Our two chiefs, Chief Rohr and Chief Warner, are excellent. And I just recently met with Chief Warner, the head of our fire department, on this very topic, because as it came up, it's been a hot topic because we are looking at the funding for our ambulance. You know, when it comes down to it, there are a couple of things that are at play here, which are state policies. As I said, with Excel, working with the state to address the Department of Revenue when it's with regards to their valuations, or in this particular case, working with the state to address the policy about how regions are set up. So we are the service provider for the region, which means we're really obligated to serve this larger community. We don't have the right, nor would we want to, I would hope, ask an individual when we responded, how are you going to pay for this service? So we need to be working with our community. When it comes down to it, it's response time, it's our health. So if we go down to a one ambulance fire department, it might be 30 minutes or an hour before you see somebody arrive at your place for a heart attack or for severe need. So while we do need to address this issue, and we do need to look at all of the options, cutting it is not the first thing on the table.
I'm going to sound like a broken record. What does the community want? But that being said, I do got to give a shout out because I do have several volunteer firefighter friends. They are professionals. As far as cutting, if it was up to me, I would not cut the fire department. I'd leave it the way it is, especially the amount of sirens that I hear daily.
we do not want to cut the fire department.
Well, my first statement was that what I was going to support is community safety, including emergency response and fire. So I wouldn't be cutting the fire department either. The question was a little bit loaded, saying you want either an all-volunteer or an all-professional one. There may be some nuances. There may be some things that you can do as far as reducing the incidences of fire by increased fire marshal inspections and some things like that. But number one is community safety, and that includes fire and emergency response. Door knocking, I ran into a fellow, said he rolled his lawn tractor over on himself, so the paramedics were there in 4 minutes. That's great.
Okay, we're up to the last question before the closing arguments. And we're going to hear from Ron, then Becky, and then Chad. In your experience as a resident of Red Wing, what has been a significant recent action taken by the City Council? And we'll have 90 seconds for this one.
Can you repeat that?
In your experience as a resident of Red Wing, what has been a significant recent action taken by the City Council?
Yeah, so that's an easy one. When they fired Chief Pullman, I mean, he was an excellent police chief. He was out in the community doing all the things that you wanted a police chief to do. He had his officers out working with people in the community in a non-law enforcement manner, endearing kids to the police department, just growing those relationships. And so piggybacking on that, when a whole big, large group of people got together to recall our city council members, and we did it per the city charter. We got our 20% for each one, except for one. And the city charter doesn't call for, the city council voting if we should have an election or not. It only calls for when that special election will be. And the city council decided not to have that special recall election. So if I was on the council and I made a decision that really angered that many people, I would welcome a recall election because I would want to know that I still had the support of my constituents.
We make a lot of decisions. I'm trying to think about a couple in particular. I think our investments in Himini Cha, the new plaza in there, is important. Our West End, we just wrapped up, or we're starting to really wrap up on opening that. I know that a lot of the businesses down there have been waiting for that for a couple of years. It's part of our Upper Harbor redevelopment plan. It's part of that energy that creates an economic boom. Updating the Levee Park, bringing in 3 new riverboat cruise lines, I think is a really huge benefit. We are working on approving TIF funding for some housing developments. In the last couple of years, we've approved TIF funding for new units out across from Mayo Hospital. So I think there's a lot of decisions that the City Council makes that makes this community stronger.
I've been asked to repeat the question. In your experience as a resident of Red Wing, what has been a significant recent action taken by the City Council?
Okay, well, to address what Ron talked about, which is basically was happening about the time we moved here, being a political science major, I do not believe that the use of recall elections are appropriate unless there is evidence of malfeasance on the part of the city council members. To me, that's a policy decision, and you can't have policy decisions be governed by recall elections, because all you end up doing is you're creating an environment in which the city council member, the city leaders, is looking over their shoulder and whether or not they're going to get recalled. Unless there's, as I said, an evidence of malfeasance, it's not an appropriate way to use that procedure. All I think it ends up doing is dividing the community. It creates division, and then that's not an appropriate action that I think is bringing the community together.
Next, we'll hear from Jason, then Ted, Dean, and Janie. And I'm sorry, I'll read the questioning one more time. In your experience as a resident of Red Wing, what has been a significant recent action taken by the City Council?
So I'm a believer in,
Okay. We'll wait until after he's done.
so I'm a believer in following the law. The highest law of our land is our U.S. Constitution. The next law is our state, Minnesota State Constitution, and then up by our Red Wing City Charter. In all three of those, it says the people have all the power. So it doesn't matter why the people wanted a recall election. They wanted a recall election. The city council did not listen to its citizens. If they wanted a recall election, the only decision that the Red Wing City Council gets to make is when are we going to have the election. It doesn't matter if you want a recall election because you don't like the fact that I wear a hat. If you ask for one, I'm going to set a date.
And we're going to wait until the very end for the rebuttal. So next we have Ted, then Dean, and Janie.
You know, I'll echo what's been said about the firing of the chief. You know, what divided the community was firing the chief. That's what divided. But I want to talk about something else. You know, we just recently, the city council just recently paid $95,000 for a little patch of land to improve and keep the bike trail going on the riverside. Nobody else will buy that land. Actually, if we weren't going to buy it, probably could have not just had a zero levy, probably could have had a reduction of the levy. We could go down the Highway 63 right away, down to the Isaac Walton League, and so we'd save quite a bit of money. So spending money like that, I think, was a bad idea.
Well, I don't know if I'm going to answer the question that you did. There's a lot to rebut here, but that recall wasn't legal. I mean, there was no malfeasance. I'm just going to leave it at that. The firing of the chief, I'm quite sure, is what caused it. I think it split our community. I just refer everybody to the memo that was put up in the city about that termination. It spells it out. I can't say anything more than that. You know, employees have rights. The chief that was fired, he has all the rights. He can put out whatever statement he wants, tell everybody what he wants, what he was fired for. We're not allowed to, except for what was in that memo. So I'm going to leave it. Well, actually, I'm going to answer that quick question. One thing that I thought was very significant that we just did was we decided to send it back to staff so we could licensure that those new gummy bears with the THC in them, so kids don't get them.
I just want to continue that conversation of this divided our city, the whole well-liked, well-evaluated police chief being let go, who didn't even know why he was let go at the time. And I just want to quickly go through, as quickly as I can, the process of my experience with it. I had a friend who had been let go as a public, well-liked staff member. Out of the blue, in the midst of Minnesota crisis, when we're in the midst of pandemic, everything, a terrible timing, and leaders didn't tell us why. We tried to have a petition that we had about 200 to 300 people sign to say, wait, council, can you please just wait? And can you please tell us as a community why this is happening? Help us understand. And it was not listened to, it was not responded to, and they continued on with the termination of the police chief at that time. We tried a recall, that didn't work. We tried to go by the letter of the law. So I would end on a positive note because I just tend to be that type of person, but I love mixed recycling. I hope that's affected everybody else's life too, so I'll leave that there.
Now we'll have Ron's rebuttal.
So I just responded to Chad's comments about we can't have people having a recall, as a matter of anytime they don't like policy. If anybody was involved in that recall knows how much work it is to try and go and get 20% of the signatures in all the wards. It's not a trivial operation. And nor was that firing a trivial thing. I mean, it happened at the time when riots were happening in Minneapolis. I mean, things could have gone very bad. There were people here trying to bring those riots to Red Wing at the time this was happening. It was not the time to show weakness. And we really put the city in jeopardy because of that, and that is why that recall effort was made.
Okay, now, I did this last time too, I lied. We're actually gonna have one more very quick question. And this is gonna be a lightning round question. I got some flack from my last time I did lightning round, so we're gonna do something a little lighter this time. You know, we all came here tonight to hear about how you all feel about social policies or public policy, but we'd also like to know a little bit about you as a person. So you can answer this question with one word, and we're going to pass the mic down. So the question is, Prince or Dylan?
You know Ted Nugent? Prince.
Dylan.
Geez, I had friends who went to school, or parents went to school with Dylan, but I had to go Prince.
Merle Haggard.
Prince.
Definitely Prince.
Dylan.
Okay, now for real, we're going to go to our closing statements now, and we will start with Ted, then Janie, and Jason.
This is 45 minutes, right? How much? How many? 90 seconds. Okay. I'm Ted Seifert, lived in the community for over 50 years. I want to make sure that we have a safe community, including emergency response. I want to lower your taxes so that we can draw more business and everybody can live here, not just those who are, a little well-to-do. We need people who aren't quite so well off that are able to staff jobs that we need. I don't know if you've tried to go to a restaurant and get prompt service, and it's not a problem with the restaurant, it's a problem that they can't hire anybody because they don't have enough people to go to work. If taxes in Red Wing keep going up, that will become even a bigger problem. So, along with safety, lower your taxes. I want to address some of the after effects of the COVID lockdowns. I know there are many people that are still afraid. And I'm here to tell you, you don't really have to be. You take a few precautions and you should be all right. Some of the precautions that we were told we had to do weren't very effective. So there's a lot of work to be done in that area. So I'm Ted Seifert. I want to see Red Wing continue as a beautiful city, and I'm asking you to vote for Ted Seifert for Ward 4. Thank you to the League of Women Voters, and thank all of you for coming.
I want to first thank all my candidates up here. It's hard to run for office, some of you know that, but I just want to thank everybody for taking the time to do it because it does take a lot of time and effort. Again, thanks for you guys for coming out. I'm Janie Farrar again. I'm running for the City Council at-large seat. As many of you know, I love this town. We chose it compared to a lot of other places. I want to continue to have it be a great place for seniors to be here, for families to choose to move here with kids, to have our schools vibrant. I've given much to this town and I have a lot more to offer. So I really hope that you know I have a big heart, a lot of experience, and I want to give back and make sure that this city is just amazing. So remember, tax relief is what I stand for, community development, and respectful leadership. I'm qualified, prepared, and I'm ready to serve you again, the residents of Red Wing. Vote Janie Farrar.
So again, I'm Jason Snyder, running for City Council Ward 3. When I moved here, we had a choice to live here or in Hastings. Nobody wants to live in Hastings. That being said, if you come to the city council, at the end of the day, I want our government to be interactive. I don't want you just to vote on the November 8th and then wait 4 years and just hope for the best. I'm hoping that our city council becomes interactive with the community, that you stop in at the meetings and we have our meetings are conversational, not just one-sided. Thank you.
And next we'll hear from Ron, Becky, Chad, and then Dean.
So I'm Ron Goggin, running for Ward 1 and 2. I was blessed to grow up in this community. I've lived here 55 years. Our family came here for my dad to take a job at Red Wing Shoe. You know, the city's almost like a family. And I want to make sure that coming generations have the same blessings that me and my family have had. I want to make sure that they have a safe community. I want to make sure it's a community that they can afford to live in. I want to make sure that it's a community that they feel like they're listened to. And I want to make them feel like they're in a community that they can make a difference. So this is my chance to make a difference. I ask that you would partner with me, vote for me November 8th. And then like Jason said, don't be a stranger after that.
My name is Becky Norton, and I'm running for City Council Ward 3. And sometimes as a leader, you have to make some really difficult decisions. And that's what I've been called to do as a city council member for the last 4 years. Unfortunately or fortunately, I had more information on some of the matters than the public. And when you're in this position, you have to make some really hard and some decisions. And I stand behind those decisions. We are a stronger community today than we've been in the past. Everything that we make, every decision that we make is connected. So when we cut one area, it affects other areas. When we build up another area, it builds up other areas. So having a strong and diverse economy, having manufacturing, tourism, housing, outdoor recreation, arts, music, culture, parks, those all help us to have a strong, healthy community. Strong, healthy children, strong, healthy adults, strong, healthy seniors. Of course, addressing housing needs as well. Our policies and practices need to be equitable and sustainable and meet everyone's needs. We have a strong past, and we need to honor our past. We need to do better at honoring our past. We need to make decisions that impact our present and create a present, everyday life experience for everybody in Red Wing. And we need to look to the future. I'm running forward. What am I running on? I'm running on the future of Red Wing and making sure that we have a strong and safe community for everybody. So for that, I ask you to vote for Becky Norton for Ward 3, starting September 23rd all the way up to November 8th. Thank you.
In my opening remarks, I highlighted my qualifications as a candidate for the City Council. My career can be summed up in 2 words: relationship building. In the democratic process, effective relationship building involves having respect for different views and for the participants. During this campaign, I intend to earn the respect of the voters of Red Wing by presenting a common sense vision for the future. The City Council member at large has the responsibility to represent all the citizens of this community. While we may not agree, I pledge to listen to your viewpoint and to express it to the best of my ability in the decision-making process. I want to echo what Janie said and others have said about loving this community. In the short time that I've been here, we've really fallen in love with this community, and that's why I chose to run. I want to see that continued. I want to make it continue to be attractive to not only ourselves, but to others that want to come here and share our beauty and our historic setting with us. And with that, I ask you for your vote on November 8th. Thank you.
Sure, I know I'm last, but I'm not the least. I'd like to thank the League for hosting this event tonight. Thanks to all of you for coming out and spending your evening getting to know all the candidates. In 2003, we began this amazing partnership. You gave me your ideas. My job was to make them reality. We've done a lot together, and we can do a lot more. You can count on me to keep taxes low, spend wisely, and keep on listening. Over the years, I hope I have earned your trust, your friendship, and your vote. I would be honored to continue our partnership. And I really appreciate everybody coming out tonight. Thank you.
All right, please join me in a big round of applause to thank all of our candidates here tonight. It takes a tremendous amount of courage and commitment and time and effort to throw your hat in the ring, so we greatly appreciate you being here. Before we close, I'm just going to ask Tina to come up and say a few words, and I just want to say one more note of thanks for the League of Women Voters volunteers. It takes a lot to put on these events. If you are interested in volunteering, no matter it can be just a little bit or a lot, we would welcome you, and please come and talk to us over here. So I'll turn it over to Tina.
Thank you, Lisa, for leading our forum this evening. Thank you again to the candidates for participating tonight, and to our co-sponsors, Red Wing Area Chamber of Commerce, Pier 55, Red Wing Area Seniors, Citizen Climate Lobby, Resilient Red Wing, American Association of University Women, and Prairie Island Indian Community. And a big thank you to you, the voters that came to spend your evening with us. Thank you. For more than 100 years, the League of Women Voters has been a trusted source for nonpartisan voter registration and education, and a long-standing witness to Minnesota's proud tradition of voter access and election integrity. We invite you to visit our website, lwvmn.org, to learn about the statutes, best practices, and safeguards associated with Minnesota elections on our Election 411 page. Follow the link to Vote 411 for a one-stop shop for all your election needs, personalized to you, including a voter's guide. We hope all our candidates here tonight have submitted their information to the voter guide. The League of Women Voters is a nonprofit organization focused on grassroots voter education. We encourage active and informed participation in government and do not endorse candidates for office or political parties. The opinions expressed tonight are those of the candidates and not those of the League of Women Voters. If you are interested in learning more about the League, please stop by our information table. The forum this evening is being recorded by LWV for a later broadcast. The recordings will be made available on local cable channels, the League Facebook page, our website, YouTube, and vote411.org. Vote411.org is a voter guide where you can check your voter registration, find information about your ballot and the candidates. Remember that early voting starts tomorrow, September 23rd. If you haven't registered to vote or requested an absentee ballot and would like to do so, please stop by our table.